Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's town hall. My name is Mike Miller. I'm the Associate Athletic Director for Marketing Strategies here at Columbia. It's been some time since we saw everybody last at Schiller Court and Levian Gymnasium, and we are glad you could all be here. We thank everyone who submitted questions for consideration tonight. We got a lot of questions, and we're going to try to address as many topics as possible. At this time, I'd like to welcome everybody on our panel. Head men's basketball coach Jim Engles and women's basketball head coach Megan Griffith. I'd also like to welcome tonight's moderator, the voice of Columbia basketball broadcast and the host of New York Giants radio pregame and Sirius XM Sports Talk on Mad Dog Radio, Lance Meadow. Welcome, everybody.
Good to be here, Mike.
All right, I'm going to hop off and let you guys get to it, and can't wait to hear what's going on with Columbia basketball.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Mike, and I look forward to delving into a variety of topics with both head coaches. First of all, it's good to see the both of you through a computer screen. I wish, of course, we were in person and talking to you about the X's and O's and getting ready for your respective seasons, but I hope that both of you, as well as yours, are safe and healthy. How's everything doing on both of your ends?
We're good. Yeah, no, we're just, trucking along here. I think grateful everybody in my circle is healthy and safe right now, and I'm sure Jim would say the same.
Yeah, it's good to see everybody. Same thing. It's been an interesting time, but it's good to be on and be talking to everybody.
Absolutely. Well, let's start with the big topic of discussion, which is the fact that the winter season, it was recently announced that there won't be any college basketball. Jim, let's start with you. When you first learned of the news, what was your initial reaction?
It was really disappointing. It's very hard to reflect on and put into words. It's something that, unfortunately, once you started to get some news about how the virus was sort of taking over again, I think we all had some sort of idea that things probably weren't going to be positive. But it was tough. It's tough as a coach. It's tough for your kids, and I know it's certainly tough for our fans. So it was it's been a very challenging time for all of us.
Megan, how about you?
I would echo a lot of the same sentiments of Jim. It's just been there's been a lot of change, and it feels like nothing is really changing at the same time. So there's, I think, this dichotomy with how should we feel? What should we plan for? How should we, everything is sort of in limbo, and it's been disappointing, like Jim said. It really was, but we understand that there's decisions that have to be made, and, our presidents made the decision for what they thought was the best of the league, and, we stand by and do our part as much as we can right now just to keep our players and our staffs motivated and keep everybody engaged.
I think the two of you were in a very interesting position because I'm sure you were monitoring what happened once the fall seasons were announced, that they weren't going to happen, and what the football and all the other sports had to go through. So, Megan, I want to start with you. When you learned that the fall season was going to be canceled, what did you perhaps put into motion about the potential that the winter season could be interrupted, and trying to really maybe get ahead of the process here?
Yeah, there's so many things, that when that happened, and you're gutted for those coaches and those student athletes, and then at the same time you realize that this is getting closer to your reality, or it could be. So I think you prepare for best case and worst case, and then kind of everything in between from what we've learned with the virus and how the pandemic has shaken out. So, for us, it was, okay, what do we do right now with the team in front of us? How do we get them as focused and locked in as possible? And what's most important, right? It's kind of trying to figure out what's most important right now for this time for growth. So our teams have morphed quite a lot, from last March to August to now. And it's just kind of making sure that everybody's still thinking about growing and moving forward and controlling what they can control.
And Jim, what about you? What had those fall months been like, as you would normally be going into the mode of preparing for the upcoming season?
I don't know if you can hear. I'm downstairs in my basement. My daughter just got accepted early decision to Villanova, so there's like 15 girls running up and down.
Well, congratulations to you and the family.
So I apologize if there's a lot of noise. Yeah, I mean, it's the hardest thing for this whole thing is for our guys. I mean, basketball has started now, so it's they see their friends playing. They know that guys are out there playing, and it's I totally support what the Ivy League has done. I believe it's the right thing, and but it's very hard as a college kid and 18 to 22 years old to understand that safety is put out there, and it's hard for those guys to understand that. It's be something that they'll reflect upon when they're older. But to lose a year and to see their guys playing, and I'm sure it's been I know it's been very challenging for me. I'm sure it's very challenging for Meg, and just to make sure that these guys understand, hey, you'll get through this. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. Unfortunately, you're just going to have to understand that there's some things that are bigger than this, bigger than you just playing right now.
On a lighter note, Jim, before we move on, you piqued my interest by bringing up Villanova because your team has collided with Villanova over the last few seasons. I just want to make sure that if you do go up against Jay Wright in the near future, that your daughter's allegiance is with the proper team. Can we at least clarify that here?
I can't really do that. I'm sorry. The reason why, and this is the truth, when I was in NJIT, we played Villanova a number of years ago. And it was a tight game coming down to the last 3 or 4 minutes. And my daughter said to my wife, I love the school spirit here. I think it's awesome. And I want to go to school here. So this was probably 10 years ago. So it comes full circle. And I just texted Jay. I was like, Jay, she's going to be really good in the student section. So I was really excited.
Very nice. Well, congrats to you and the family once again, as we are focusing on, of course, the immediate reaction to when the two of you learned that the winter season was going to be canceled. And Megan, I know you recently took part in a roundtable discussion with Doug Feinberg and a number of other Ivy League coaches. Mm-hmm. We were just talking about how you and your staffs handled the news. What have the conversations been like between you and fellow women's basketball coaches? Because you're pretty much all going through this simultaneously.
I mean, I've spoken to the coaches in the league more than I probably ever have. Same on the men's side. I know we've spoken about a lot of unique issues ever since March happened. And, I think it's a time where we're all trying to learn from each other and figure out what's best for everyone and how does Columbia move forward best. But I think the conversations, a lot of it, early on was I was on a scheduling committee and we were trying to figure out what was the way, how could we have a season, right? So what's taking this conservative mindset and figuring out, okay, what's the best way that we can do this? I was in a lot of conversations then, from our call this past week, just kind of hearing about what different campuses situations are, right? So, Penn and Princeton, similar to us, had nobody on campus. And then, Harvard, right, had only their freshmen. So it's just very different all over the league. And I think everybody wants to work towards the same thing, right? So we're trying to learn from each other, talk to each other, share ideas. But, it's been hard for everybody. And, but I am proud that, we're doing work that's really important in other ways off the court. So it's good to hear that and share that amongst other coaches.
And Jim, what about you? You obviously have connections with various coaches across this league, specifically from all the years that you've spent. But what has the back and forth been like on your side of things?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the stuff is everybody's disappointed. There's really no other way to put it. I think we've all, I've called some of the guys and talked to them about some of the things that they've been doing, and they've obviously reached out to us, and same thing. This is such a new thing. We're all trying to take care of our programs, and we're all trying to sort of represent the league in the right way. So, I think that's the great thing about our conference is, on both sides, on both the men's and women's sides, we have some great people who run these programs, and, to be able to call some of these people friends is something that goes way beyond basketball. So, I empathize. We all empathize with what's going on, and it's been very hard for our kids, and we're all going through this together. I really believe that. I think it's just not us as Columbia people. As an Ivy League family, I think we're all going through this together, and there's a lot of people hurting out there.
There's no doubt about it. Columbia is not on an island. Everybody can relate to these circumstances. We're going to involve some fan questions that have been submitted as we move along here, and this relates to some of the challenges that every Ivy League coach is perhaps facing. We received a lot of questions on this topic, and it pertains to the fifth-year rule in the Ivy League. So has there been much discussion among the coaches to try to gain some flexibility, Jim, in that department in terms of not losing players and maybe having them stay on with that fifth-year eligibility?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, personally, I wish, I think that rule has affected us in a lot of ways. So I would love to see it change, but I also understand the purpose of it, and the Ivy League is different. So I honestly, in my humble opinion, I don't know if we'll ever see a change. So I think it's just something we have to accept, and we have to support the guys as they leave. They're getting an Ivy League degree, and then they're going on and representing themselves, their families in the Ivy League as well, and they're in the schools. So, I just don't think it's something that we'll ever see move towards getting kids into graduate programs in our own schools.
Megan, from the conversations you had, what's your take on perhaps the fifth-year eligibility rule?
Similar to Jim, I don't think it's going to change. I think this is a decision that will have to come from the very top of all of our institutions, and starting with the presidents and the whole mission of what the Ivy League and the athletics within the Ivy League is about, the undergraduate experience. So that would have to change quite a lot of, just kind of what our mission statement is, I believe. And so, again, I think that Jim said it, a lot of these young men and women that go to our schools, they're going to get their degree here, and they're going to go on and have opportunities elsewhere. So it's more about them accepting that, embracing it, understanding why they chose this place in the first place. It wasn't just to be a basketball player. So, with that, they get their eligibility will stay intact. Nobody this year loses a year of eligibility. So that's a really great thing. And, we have some great players that have proven on both sides to go to some really great institutions beyond this. So like Jim said, they'll have their degree, they'll get to go and represent us in great light still.
Well, this relates to continuity, which is something that the two of you can relate to. I mean, that's how you build the program. You want to have some carryover continuation. And, in addition to coordinating things with your players, I'm sure it's been a challenge in terms of coordinating things with your respective staffs, right? You're used to going into the office and being right next to one another. So, Megan, what has the communication been like between you and your assistant coaches over the last few months as you're navigating this coronavirus?
Yeah, it's definitely different. We're used to say, I can yell out of my office, and our director of operations, Megan Rojas, I'm like, hey, Meg, and we can just have that exchange. And, I think we're missing that human interaction, but you just have to be more intentional and organized. I believe in your weeks and your days. Ever since March happened, we've been having as a staff a weekly Monday check-in, Tuesday recruiting meeting, and then subsequent meetings like individually with me and individuals on the staff and amongst themselves. So we've been communicating quite a lot. And I did get some FaceTime with the staff. I have been able to have that, but I just think you just have to be creative. You have to be flexible and understand that, one of my assistants has 2 young boys at home, and they're in daycare, but on the days that they can't be in daycare, he's at home and the boys are home. And so you just have to kind of roll with the punches right now and just communicate. I think that's been the biggest part of this, is just the emphasis on communication within our staff.
Jim, how about you? What has your experience been like in terms of keeping on top of your staff and communicating on that front?
Yeah, I mean, this has been a really tough year from a staff perspective. I just had, Marlon Sears left to be the head coach at Amherst, and I had Jared Check leave to go to Air Force with Joe Scott. So I hired, thankfully, Columbia was able to sign off on accepting 2 new hires. So I was able to hire 2 new guys, and it was ironic. The only time we've been together as a full staff, we went in and we went on, just the only time I've been on Levian's floor, on Jonathan Schiller's floor, obviously. I'm sorry, Jonathan, don't get mad at me. We were on Jonathan's floor, and then we actually got together as a full staff, and this was probably like 3 or 4 days before they were technically supposed to open up the gym, and we were supposed to have everybody work out. So we got together to discuss some things we were going to go over with our team. And so we've only been together as a staff for an hour over the last 9 months. So it's, and then they shut it down. So we've been doing we get together every day in some respect, normally in the morning as a staff. That could last 5 minutes or an hour and a half, depending on what we're talking about. And so we've been doing everything virtually. I get a kick out of Toby Carberry, who's our new assistant from Yale, has a very young family, and I'm sure Megan's gone through the same thing. Like when you're on these Zoom calls and you see these kids just hanging on him, and I'm like, Toby, when we actually go back in the office, these kids are going to go through some serious withdrawal. And he was like, yeah, he goes, they'll get over it. So that shows you a little bit of toughness at Tobe. I love it. So.
Absolutely. Yes. The additional challenges of balancing family life as well as basketball. Everybody is certainly experiencing that firsthand. On a related note to the logistics and things that you've had to navigate, when the fall announcement was made, a number of student athletes unenrolled in school. And I'm curious, when the winter announcement came out, Megan, I want to start with you. How did that perhaps impact how you were thinking about, hey, are student athletes going to leave school? What does that mean about eligibility and so forth? How much did that perhaps impact your team?
So the fall decision was much more impactful than the winter decision. So we had 5 players decide to take leave of absence as of like July, August. And so they'll be returning and they'll have all of their years here with us left. And, for everybody else that enrolled, they all kind of kept along the same path when this winter announcement just came about in November. So, those were a lot of hard conversations. That's when, the work you did in recruiting and the great work my staff did to build relationships with these families is where you can sit down, look eye to eye and say, hey, what's best for your child? And I support that. And that was really, honestly, those were tough, but they were necessary. And I'm in full support of all of the decisions that they've made for their families. So, we're in a little bit of a different state, I think, than Jim might be, but, across the league, it's very different as well. So, we have teams that took, players like us, 5, 7, 8 players from their programs. And then we have, certain places where nobody did. So it's, we're all juggling it and trying to manage it, but excited to move forward with the returning group here.
Jim, what's your experience been like in terms of any student athletes leaving school or taking a leave of absence?
We left that option open for the guys. We were cautiously optimistic that we actually would play in some sense. So we talked about it. Nobody decided to take a year off. So we had of our 17 guys, 13 of our guys were on campus or around campus for the fall. So, we were really holding out hope that we could at least, that something would happen in a positive way. So, in hindsight, it probably would have been better for some of the guys to take the year off. But again, I think the same way with Megan, what Megan says, this is a family decision and this is a personal decision for them. And, we're certainly supporting them in every way possible.
Well, Jim, with the team, for the most part, as you just hit on, staying together, there is the conditioning aspect, even though you're not playing games, to at least the guys to stay in shape, both mentally and physically. In terms of the academic structure right now, because not everybody's on campus and there's virtual learning, what has it been like in terms of getting these guys to work out in some capacity, given the fact that there's no season?
Yeah, I mean, we're bound by NCAA rules and Ivy League rules. So, we've been able to follow the protocols that were given to us by the different organizations. Obviously with the gym not being open, the basketball part of things has been I hate to say random, but it has been random. We've had guys, most of our guys were working out. They were going to Riverside Park and, I don't know the courts, but they had like 2 or 3 courts that they were using that they were going to. Thankfully, the fall was actually pretty warm, so most of the guys were able to get out there. We bought them some outdoor basketballs, and they were able to go out and play. From a conditioning standpoint, Tommy Sheehan, we're allowed to do. Tommy sends these guys something every day that they are required to follow and adhere to. So we have them. Tommy's really in charge of that aspect of stuff, and we just, as much as we're allowed to monitor it, we monitor it. And then the academic stuff has been really done through, obviously through Jessica DiPaolo and her department, but also through our staff. We have different protocols that we follow from an academic perspective to make sure that these guys are doing their work and staying on board with what they're doing. So, it's been a challenge, and especially with the virus, trying to find a place. We've had guys traveling around a little bit of the city. There's really hasn't been a lot of places open up indoors. There's been one place in Brooklyn, so some of the guys have been going there, but it's not, I hesitate. I get worried that these guys are going to be on the train or on a bus and they're going to come back with the virus. So we've been very lucky along those lines, but we've been trying to manage it. So these guys have done a very good job, and I know they're frustrated and I know they're disappointed, and they really have done an extraordinary job to keep themselves engaged, basketball wise and conditioning wise.
Well, as a Brooklyn native, I fully support them using that borough in some capacity. I'm with you. I want it to be done in a safe manner, but I'm all for them branching outside of Manhattan and maybe exploring Brooklyn. You'd be very surprised in terms of what that borough has to offer if they take the opportunity to do that. Megan, on a more serious note, what was your experience like thus far in terms of having your players work out and also trying to balance them staying focused on academics while dealing with what everybody else in this world is dealing with right now?
Yeah, it's been hodgepodge, and just kind of, it's everybody's situation is not just changed one time and it was like, oh, this is what's set for the fall, right? There's been various different factors that have contributed to that. So, very opposite of Jim's situation, we didn't have anybody in the greater New York area. So our players were scattered everywhere across the country, across the world. We have players that are in Europe as well. So it was a matter of just trying to make sure that, trying a lot of new things, a lot organizationally, what works best. Can we get a time where we can get our West Coasters and our player in Spain on a same call, like once a week? Like, how does this work? So there was just a lot of checks and balances, trial and error, trying to figure out what worked best. And I give immense credit to our staff and players for being flexible and just trying to figure it out with us. As Jim said, that, I'm really amazed at the resiliency of our young athletes, because it's tough. Like, they've received a lot of bad news, and I think that they've done a great job managing it and handling it, tempering their expectations, but also staying engaged and focused. So, for us, in terms of, the basketball workouts, we got really creative and I was filming myself doing workouts and sending it to our team, even something as simple as that, especially early in quarantine where you couldn't leave your house, couldn't have access to a hoop. Everybody has a different setup. So you just have to temper with the workout, tailor the workout. And this is the variation that you do. This is the variation that Michaela does. This is what Caitlin does. We would engage in some chalk talks every once in a while, especially recently. That's been a big hit with our team, which is fun to see because, they enjoy talking hoops and they watch a lot of basketball, which, 4 years ago when I got here, that wasn't the case. So it's, I think that's been a lot of fun to see that transformation happen. And then as well, in terms of the conditioning and strength workouts, Coach Matt Herhall is our strength coach. He's done a great job at just making sure that they're prepared, staying engaged. Him and I connect every week just to say, hey, what's the update? What information did you get? Did anybody report back? Same thing goes with our athletic trainer, just making sure the players are healthy. They're able to get to PT still, or, if there's anything that they need to get assessed. And then, academically, similar to Jim, we have our protocols within the program, and my staff has done a great job at keeping up, making sure that our players are engaged and, performing well and still showing up and making sure that we're representing, Columbia women's basketball and athletic department as best as we can.
Megan, interesting. Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, Meg, you're making me feel bad. I got a hoop in my backyard. I'm going to have to go outside and
Jim, let's go, man.
I'm going to break out my high school shorts and I'm going to start showing some moves. So you guys better watch Twitter. It's going to be fun.
I'm ready.
Stay tuned. Jim Engles will go viral on social media any day now. We're just waiting. It's funny the both of you brought that up because clearly the both of you played. The both of you are still students of the game. You've been around the game a long time. And Megan, you referred to these chalk talk sessions. I'm curious, trying to maybe make the best of a very unusual circumstance. How much has this given you an opportunity, especially your staff members, to take a step back, reevaluate what you've done as a coach, think about scheme, really peel back the layers of what coaching is all about for yourself?
Yeah, that's a great point. And, it's almost like we're taking the sabbatical we never asked for. So it's, you just, you find yourself engaging in different ways with the game. I would say that personally, I've been more present in everything I'm doing because I'm just not as in the weeds with my team. I'm not analyzing practice film every day and thinking about how to get Abby Shue the ball in this spot or, anything like that. It's more been about, okay, like you said, Lance, take a step back. It's not so much about us right now in this moment, but how we can grow, how we can get better. Just doing a lot of studying of other programs and what they do, what works. So it's been actually, honestly, I've enjoyed it. Once I got over like that college basketball was on TV, I've enjoyed watching basketball again and not having I'm scouting, right? I feel like when I'm in scouting, and Jim can probably say this, you're just watching your team and like the team you're playing all the time. You might catch a couple games, but just getting to learn from some of these other programs I don't get to traditionally follow.
Jim, how about you? Clearly disappointing that you're not being able to coach, but has it been rather refreshing that maybe you've been able to see the game through a different lens?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I'm personally boycotting college basketball, so I haven't watched one possession.
Understandable.
I have not watched one possession of college basketball this year. So, and I'm being serious. Like our guys are really disappointed, and it's very hard for me to watch my friends and understand how hard my team has been. And maybe that's petty, but I've been really watching a lot of European basketball, doing a lot of clinics. I've spoken to a lot of people that you don't normally have access to at this time of year. So it's been really good from a development standpoint. I think from a staff development standpoint, we've been doing a lot of recruiting and trying to stay in contact that way. But so like Meg said, you try to make the best of it with the situation that you've been presented. And I feel like we've been doing a very good job as a staff, and I know our guys have been doing a good job. And, because no one's really gone through this before, it's very interesting to find out, what's going on. I've been following the Giants too, Lance. I haven't seen your show though, man. I got to get Sirius XM.
There you go. Yeah, you got to branch out a little bit, especially if you're not watching college basketball. Come on over. There's always plenty of room. Plenty of room in terms of the listenership.
I'm going to start breaking down like defensive schemes in the backfield with safeties and cornerbacks.
Hey, there's always a seat on the pregame show, Jim. So if you want to, take some time away from basketball, I'd welcome the analysis on the football front. No problem. Megan, if you want to take part two, there's room for that too. You always like to branch out. We said that we were working in a lot of fan and season ticket holder questions. So I want to get to another one. And we also received a lot of questions on this front about what has the impact of the season had throughout the Ivy League on transfers and student athletes who have entered the NCAA transfer portal. Megan, let's start with you on that front.
So we have 4 seniors right now, 3 of which are exploring their transfer portal options. So, which is, and that's everybody's individual choice. I think that across the league, you're going to see a lot of talented seniors, kind of roll the dice and see what's out there for them. I've heard that from other coaches as well. There's some really talented players in our league, much like on the men's side, and they're going to have great opportunities in front of them. I think, in terms of us and transfers into Columbia, that's something we won't know quite as much about until after the season. That's typically when that heats up a little bit. So, but for us, I don't know. But they're not sure. They're not even sure if they want to play. I think like one of them has locked in on a decision, but it's more about just knowing like there's like an option out there and I can get my master's somewhere. And so we're willing to help them in any way that we can so that they can get this year of eligibility in another institution. But, I think that it will, unfortunately, they don't get to play their last year here, which that's going to be hard for every senior right out there. But in bright light, they are going to have great opportunities and graduate with their Ivy League degree.
And Jim, how about your experience or what you've been hearing in terms of the challenges that the Ivy League has faced with respect to transfers?
There's going to be a huge amount of people in the portal because of the rules that are going on right now. And, we've talked to our guys. We've told all our guys to put their names into the portal right now just to make sure that they get their names out there. I know that I believe all of them have been contacted by at least a couple of schools. So we're trying to sort of direct them in certain ways. So it's going to take a couple of years here with I think college basketball in general, because from the way I understand it, the teams that are on scholarship right now will have the opportunity to ask their returning seniors to come back. So that means that rosters are going to be over the limits. So that's going to take a year for it to shake out, and then it'll probably take from, in talking to people, it'll take a couple of years for this to get back to what we would consider normal with roster sizes and stuff. So it's going to be hard for these kids, anybody who's looking to transfer right now, because it's going to be very select, and there's a ton of options. So we're investigating all different schools, all different options. We're investigating some things for some of our guys in Europe, and we just got to stay patient, because this is sort of a dead time right now. It's mid-December. Guys are basically just starting their seasons. With COVID right now, a lot of people are just, there's so much pressure on these staffs and kids to, with the seasons that are going on right now. So it's going to take a little time for this stuff to shake out.
On a related note, and speaking of roster management, I want to move to recruiting, because I think that ties into what you were talking about. You can't have access to go to high schools and go on the road like you normally would do in previous seasons. So, Jim, I want to start with you. What has it been like from a recruiting standpoint, not just for the incoming 2021 class, but as you're looking at potential players even years beyond that?
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing's new. So the dead period is extended through April 15th. So, I just had a parent just text me before. He's going to be in the city. He wants to come by. And I told him, hey, you're allowed to walk campus, but we're not allowed to see you. So there is no access from a personal standpoint with anybody in recruiting. So everything has been done virtually. We're watching a lot of film. And unfortunately, some of these kids right now are at a disadvantage, these high school kids, because it's all state by state. So a lot of states aren't playing. No, a state like Texas is playing, or a state like North Carolina is playing. So it's so random. There's going to be a lot of kids, unfortunately, that are going to be left out there, for nothing other than the fact that their state didn't play or they didn't have an AAU season. So we're trying to be smart about it. We're trying to do as much research as possible. And, and the video aspect of stuff is something that, we all take pretty seriously as a staff. So we try to watch as much video as possible.
And how about you, Megan, in terms of your experience as well as your staff on the recruiting front?
Well, I think we're all seeing across the board, I'm sure this is on the men's side as well, you're just seeing a lot of commitments early, right, from student athletes. I think people are nervous about losing scholarship opportunities. To Jim's point about, are these players coming back, and is my school honoring my scholarship? Like, none of that has been decided right now. So I think that, you have the one side of it where people are trying to make decisions early, which that's very unfamiliar territory for all of us, right? And then at the same time, you have people that will make decisions late, or they're not really sure. They want to get on campus or try to wait this out to see what April holds and maybe the summer. So, for us, it's continuing to do what we do, with recruiting in terms of build the relationship, talk to their circle of influence, and just, realize that this is, although it's been very different for all of us, this is very new for all of them too, in terms of this is their first rodeo with recruiting, right? So the 2022 class, that'll be the 26th class in college, they've never even had a September one where they didn't realize like the coaches wouldn't be sitting in their living room the next week. So it's just, you're trying to adapt and realize like, hey, we got to make this the best experience for them and bring Columbia to them in any creative way we can. Right. So I think it's really encouraged us and made us become as creative and imaginative as we can with how we recruit right now. But like Jim said, I've watched more game film than ever before, because usually you want to get eyes on somebody in person, and you have the summer evaluation periods in the spring, which we had neither, nor the fall. So it's just trying to get game film as recent as possible and stay on top of that.
Earlier, Jim had touched on the changes to his coaching staff. Megan, I know you also had some changes to your coaching staff. I wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about that and really how that's tied into also getting through recruiting, because responsibilities vary amongst members on your staff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we only had one change, actually. So Angela Barrett, who was one of our assistant coaches, she's now coaching at Coppin State. We hired a new assistant in September named Fallon Baker, and young, super energetic, great passion for the Ivy League and what we're doing here. Has a great mind for the game. It's just been catching her up to speed, so like our recruiting coordinator stayed, and then that's Tyler Cordell. So she's been keeping up with our sort of game plan, and she came with me to Columbia. So she sees a lot of things on the same level as me. And then Greg Rosnick's been our international recruiting coordinator and has done a great job with our 21 class. So, we're all kind of just like in the fire, and it's been helpful actually to have a new vision viewpoint come into the mix and just say, hey, what about this? Or because we're so, like I said, we're so stuck in kind of what we've been doing the past few years together.
Well, and I think that relates to what we talked about earlier, Megan, with respect to taking a step back from the game. When you bring in a new staff member, they're going to have a completely different perspective than you and the other staff members that had been working with the team over the last few years.
For sure. It's healthy. We all need it. We all need that. Why do you do this? And so it's helped us, rethink, reshape, and just get better overall.
And Jim, in terms of your experience with respect to reviewing film and looking through potential transfers or potential recruits, has it given you a different eye to the game with respect to how maybe you previously would look at recruits or the feedback you'd get from assistants?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, definitely. I think you're always trying to change, and you're always looking for ideas about how things can change. My staff and I actually, I just sent it to my program, a book. I want my team to read a book that a friend of mine enlightened me with, which I think really relates a lot to recruiting. And so there's a lot of things that you're always constantly challenging and questioning. And, with my new staff, like I got Tom Parada, who's a former head coach at Canisius. And so he's been a Division I head coach. And then I got Toby Carberry, who understands the Ivy League and was at Yale, was a very good player. Actually, ironic, Jesse Agel recruited Toby when he was the head assistant at Vermont. So we were watching on one of our recent Zoom calls. Toby was in the dunk contest at the Final Four. I was shocked at number one, how thin he was, and number two, how high he got. Like, he was legit. Like, Dick Vitale was going nuts. So, we've been really, we've been definitely, and with having them, and then I have Justin, who's been with me this is his second year, and with Jesse, obviously, who's been with me for a while. But, it's good to have a couple of new guys on staff who have some different perspective on stuff and bring some different things. And so we're definitely learning a lot. I think we're all challenging each other. We've talked a lot about, we've used this a lot with our team, challenge network and support network, I think it's very natural for kids to have kids in our staff to have the support network of people who are always, out there telling them the things that they want to hear. Like, well, we've been really trying to challenge each other as a staff and really, sort of questioning some of the things that we could do better. So it's been very positive along those lines.
Well, it took us about 40 minutes into the program, but I'm relieved to finally hear Jesse Agel's name being mentioned, Jim. And I'm sure that he is going to be pleased if he's watching or at least has an opportunity to tune in. So, Jesse, you ask him, he's going to be very proud of himself that his name came up in this conversation. I can only imagine you're dating him a little bit, Jim, though, in terms of you talk about the connections of assistants now that he may have crossed paths with on the recruiting trail. I don't know how much he's going to love that.
Yeah, well, that's the problem with we are pretty old. My staff is very old. So Megan's staff can run circles around our staff.
Absolutely. Well, I want to expand before we wrap up here about topics unrelated to the X's and O's, because this has also given everybody outside of basketball an opportunity to weigh in on far more important issues, specifically tied into the Ivy League. And the Ivy Promise represents the Ivy League basketball coaches' commitment to the Black Lives Matter movement. While individually our platforms are influential, combined our platforms can be a catalyst for change. We are committed to achieving reform. That was issued by the Ivy League. And Megan, I want to start with you about what it means to be a part of a league that supports these causes.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure, honestly, to see our programs come together on the men's and women's side. And Jim and I have had a lot of conversations, but, just see that it came from within the coaches, and to know that this is something that we really wanted to push and make sure that we were strong advocates for, and developing a game plan for change. I think there's like a promise statement that we all came up with, and, but I think the bigger topic at hand was that let's do things. Like, what are we doing, right? Because a lot of people were saying a lot of things, and we wanted action to be really attached to that plan. So it's been wonderful to see, honestly, what our student athletes have been doing, and the stabs. I know I've created a lot more connections. So I've been more in tune with other people are doing in their programs. But to see what Jim's players are doing, my players are doing, hearing about the other ones in the league, and having them have conversations across programs has been really powerful, because this is not a one-off. Okay, we checked the box to do this in January. We did this in February, whatever it was. Like, they're doing things that require real, sustainable actions, and things that can be repeated as well. So I'm immensely proud of the league for this, and for it to start within the coaches and the people, and not just like something that, hey, this is we should do from the outside. This was something that completely came from internally.
Well, and on a related note, Jim, it was announced yesterday that you're one of 40 coaches that's involved in the e-racism campaign, and that was spearheaded by College Insider. So how did you get aligned with that? How did you take part in this social movement cause?
Yeah, before I just get into that, I want to just echo what Megan was saying. The Ivy League is special for a reason, and we may not have taken, in regards to basketball and athletics, unfortunately, some of the decisions may not have been popular with everybody, but they're leaders in what they do. So the fact that we aren't playing, and they took I think we were probably one of the only leagues, the first leagues, to really jump on board with social justice as a league. And so it's very humbling to be involved with leadership like that. When you have people who genuinely care about what's going on, not only on the court, but off the court. They care about kids' safety. They care about how the kids' environments that they're experiencing, and they care about leadership. So, I'm really proud to be part of that as one of the coaches, in the men's and women's side. Also, with College Insider is really the voice of mid-major basketball. Obviously Columbia won the College Insider tournament a few years back, and so we've had a big connection with them. They got together and they wanted to sort of give the coaches another sense of a voice. I know the NABC has done a very good job up to this point of really jumping on board with the issues that are at hand that we have to come to grips with. And College Insider has also wanted to jump on board with that. I think it's a great platform for myself and for other coaches. And we actually have a meeting. Our first meeting is tomorrow, so I'm excited to get on board. With some of the guys that are actually involved with this. It's going to be really good to talk to these guys about things that we can do for our teams.
I think it's also important to note that some of the student athletes on your teams have also taken part of an organization, the Black Student Athlete Alliance, BSAA, and that was formed to provide an exclusive community for Black student athletes to come together in a safe space and have meaningful dialogue to aid in an optimal experience as members of Columbia University. So both teams, from what I understand, have representatives taking part in this alliance. And Megan, how important is that to see that interaction between your players as well as this organization?
Yeah, I'm really proud of their leadership, both of them, to know that it's across both of our programs and that they took the initiative, right? This is something that came again from within, from the student athletes. This is not something that said, hey, dude, let's do this. This came from them. They came up with the idea. And for two of them to have a leadership role within the BSAA, and then also multiple student athletes on my program are involved with it. It's really great to see that they're going to back up what they're saying and stick with this and make sure this is, again, repeatable, and that the actions they take are really having, a plan attached to them. So I'm very excited to see what work they're going to be doing. Immense credit to Ari and Marquise, the two people that are leading it from the department. And, it's great to see that them stepping up and really exercising their voices and their action.
And Jim, what have you observed in terms of your players' involvement on that alliance?
Yeah, Ty Bibbs, who is a senior, and Ike Nowecki, a junior, have both jumped on board with that committee. And again, same thing that Megan's saying. It's really we're really all very proud as a program to see those guys take some leadership with such a pressing and such an important issue. And they have, and especially with some of the stuff that's gone on, just, the fact that, they're regular students. So there's a lot of responsibility that they have to sort of take when they step into a leadership position with so much at stake. So, I think they're doing a wonderful job, and it's great to see Columbia again, Ivy League type thing, be at the forefront and to really put themselves out there, and to try to make things better.
Well, this has been a very enjoyable conversation. I thank the two of you for taking the time to catch us up on what it's been like over the last few months. We all wish, of course, we were at basketball games viewing it. Hopefully this wait will just make it much more enjoyable when both teams return to the court. But Megan, Jim, thanks again for all your time. Best of luck moving forward with your respective teams. And I personally hope that I'll be able to interact with you in person sooner rather than later. So thank you very much for taking the time to do this.